Hey, welcome to Gen X Medic here. We're going to talk about an interesting situation that's going on online. There's this character online, rather infamous. We're not going to mention his name. Hey, or the young lady that was involved, that's been involved with him. If you know, you know. It's internet drama, and I'm usually not the biggest fan of internet drama, but I do like when I've got an opportunity to actually reestablish, start doing videos again, and have something that actually intersects with EMS, medicine, and the things that really matter to me. So I'm watching Arcada Law, you know, and I understand there's people on the internet that do not like the dude because of decisions he's made. Nick's done some dumb things, but you know what? He's human. I also know a couple of times we've talked. He's been really cool to me, helped me out when I was having some bad times. So I tend to give people a little bit of the benefit of the doubt in those situations. People make dumb decisions. I'm not going to make excuses for the dude, but I'm also not going to condemn him. He was a licensed attorney, but currently his license is suspended. That's his story to tell, not mine. Doesn't mean he's not a pretty intelligent guy. Doesn't mean his legal analysis isn't usually pretty good. But in saying that, he missed something here. And I know this because I've been involved in these situations. See, I'm an Indiana paramedic. I've been in EMS for a long time. 28 years actually. And I've been working in Indiana for over 13 years now. One of the processes we have is what's called the CIT process. It's Crisis Intervention Teams. Local law enforcement's actually got actual training to be able to intervene in psychiatric situations or other medical processes where a patient may not be able to take care of themselves and they're not going to make the decision to get help, but we can't let them be a danger to themselves or others. And that's a power that the police have. And understand, you're infringing on someone's rights when you do this. I don't want that authority. But I do understand the need for it. So that's why it's important that law enforcement is able to do this. So part of the process on most CITs, if someone's got a bag, purse, duffel bag, whatever they have, it tends to be inspected, gone through. When you go to the hospital, things are going to be gone through. So something Nick missed, and understand, Indiana does have a really strong protection laws for individual rights, but they also have strong protection rights for EMS, police, fire, nurses in safety situations. These things are not what you would actually consider contradictory, because the reality is when we go in to help somebody, and if we're not protected in a way that keeps us from getting in trouble or getting hurt, it's a problem. So the problem that people worry about, and it's a fair concern, is when you have someone who would say, use this process, the safety searches and things that we do to ensure our safety, to just rifle through people's stuff. But understand, usually when we're doing this, someone's already been aggressive and violent, so getting a warrant's not going to be an issue in the first place. But more importantly, we're going to get there. A lot of times these patients become sedated, and at that point, we really need to get them to the hospital to continue the monitoring process, but before they become awake again and become more of a problem, because the patients do get belligerent. When they come out of it, a lot of times they return to being belligerent. So the CIT officers have the authority to take those rights away for a temporary time to give them help, and at least to get them evaluated by a social worker or a psychiatrist, someone who can say, yeah, we don't need to put this person in a psychiatric center, or hey, this person needs a 72-hour hold. They have that authority and that knowledge. So in the process, we're going to go through these bags, and it's not just drugs. You know, people are worried about drugs are incidental. We're not really looking for them unless that's what we're really looking for is guns, knives, and things like sharps. But then again, I've also seen situations where, hey, making sure whether they got drugs or not is important because we had a patient one time, a partner was in the back, I was driving to the hospital, and my partner made the mistake of leaving this patient's purse where the patient could find it and reach it. Partner turned their back, they grabbed the purse, started chomping down their personal medication, trying to harm themselves. So that whole situation changed. These are the things that we worry about, is why we get things searched. And when you get to the hospital, your bags are getting searched for the safety of everybody involved, including yourself. Because we don't want guns sitting around. We don't want knives sitting around. What we want is this patient to be safe, the people taking care of them to be safe. But man, if you find a bunch of illicit substances, you've got to call law enforcement. You actually turn it over to law enforcement. The police officers aren't really doing the search. They're just collecting what you've already found, which, I'm sorry, but that's legal. There is case law in that makes it legal. So let's talk about some of the sedation and monitoring of patients. I mean, you know, in this situation, you know, the patient's unresponsive. They can't give consent, right? But eventually I want them to be able to give consent to anything that needs to be done. Why? Because that means they come out of it and have a chance for a much better outcome. So you've given a patient a sedative. Locally, we use droperidol is used by several agencies locally, midazolam, ketamine. Each of these drugs have their own proper situations, right? You don't always have a one-size-fits-all tool. Therefore, while everybody wanted to use ketamine for everything, and sometimes ketamine is not the right solution. But I don't care. If I'm giving you a drug that can impact your airway, we've got to put you on end-tidal CO2 capnography so I can see how well you're breathing. I want to see your pulse ox so I know how well you're oxygenated. I want to see, I've got to have you on a heart monitor. I want to know how well your heart's beating. You know, regularly checking your blood pressure. All these things are just essential when you're sedating a patient. You've taken their ability to actually communicate with you, to let you know if there's a problem. So you need to know if there's a problem. And how do you do that? You put all the stuff on them. Because usually these drugs are safe, but there's points where they aren't. What if a patient's hypersensitive to this drug? What if this patient's got other stuff on board? I mean, we know that a lot of these really violent psychiatric incidents usually often involve stimulants. Stimulants are well known for making patients more violent, stronger, and in the end, more dangerous. Man, therefore, while we're dealing with speedballs a lot, so you get them calmed down, you hit them with the sedatives, they're calm, and now those opiates kick in, and then airway gone. Bam! Well, if you're not doing your job, if you're not monitoring their airway, if you're not paying attention, now you've got an apneic patient who dies because you're just sitting there, oh, they're just sedated, no big deal. I mean, that's on you. I don't want to have to face that. I'm trying to help this person. I do not want them to die because I did something to help them. And people are like, will you go to jail for that? Go to jail. I got to face myself in the mirror the next day because I was lazy. By the time the cops got to me, by the time the prosecutor got to me, I would probably already be in a psychiatric center myself. Because to me, the idea of trying to help somebody and them dying because of my own laziness and unwillingness to do basic, simple things. And that's a lot to live with. That is a lot to live with that I don't want to live with. You know, here's the reality that people don't want to admit. Patients have bad outcomes, but I sure want to make sure that if I've got to justify and talk about a bad outcome, I can at least look myself in the mirror that I was doing everything I could to stop that bad outcome, right? It's not hard. Folks, this is Gen X Medic. Understand, sometimes you make, when you're in a situation and patients get sedated and there's psychiatric things going on, your stuff's going to be searched. It's going to be searched by, if there's police on scene and it's a intervention, I promise you, your gear is going to be searched. And if you refuse to let them search it, it's not coming on my truck. They're going to get a warrant and they're going to go through. That's fact. And if you can't consent, we're going to go through it so way we don't grab it and grab a sharp. Like I said, there's just some nasty stuff out there, and I don't want to get stuck with a needle. That nurse is getting this stuff doesn't want to get stuck by a needle. No one wants to get, or anything like that that could be in there. What if we drop it and you've got a pistol in there that goes off, right? There's all these things that could happen. We don't want that. Your stuff's getting searched. If you've got a list of substances found, it's getting turned over to law enforcement. That is admissible by state law. So folks, this is Gen X Medic. I'm going to be signing off. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. Tell me I'm old. Tell me my hair is going gray. What have you. Appreciate your time. Thank you for watching.